I started it all over again, shooting then for the 82 ballot. And we got there. But if you remember, because you know what happened.
Yeah.
They filed a utility. It was a utility challenge. And they were going to block pass-throughs and remember that whole issue?
Right.
And so they put the utility kind of put a question on the ballot. We weren't part of it. And the Supreme Court came down and said, Frank Keller's old ruling that you had 4 years to collect signatures was invalid. It really is 6 months. And Patterson, by the way, you took more than 6 months to get your signatures. You're off the ballot. We weren't even in court.
Yeah.
And so they threw us off the ballot. So and I tell you what, you got to raise several $100,000. You've got to give a minimum of 750 speeches.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, it sure does. So at that point, you decided, I've given it two good shots, and it should have been on the ballot the second time. To hell with it. I'm going on to other things.
Yeah.
So you ran again in '84 and were reelected to your fourth and final term.
Right.
You remember that race at all? That was Reagan running for re-election. You remember your opponent then?
No, am I missing something?
It's okay. No, it's all right. I mean, it shows you your earliest opponents are the ones you won.
Oh, the only ones you remember.
You know, it's okay.
I can't remember.
So you're elected big, and then you serve out a fourth and final term, and in '88 you decide I've had enough.
Well, you can only try so many cop killings. You can only try so many murders or child abuse cases. And I used to pick the cases where I wanted to make my mark, and I always tried every case I could where a parolee had gotten out and come back and killed somebody.
Right.
I wanted to show how corrupt and mismanaged the parole system was in the state. And so I did all that, and I had the pleasure of arguing in the United States Supreme Court way back in 1974. So what I was doing after the 16 years, I was climbing the same mountains.
Right.
And I thought, well, maybe time to step out and see what's out there. And I left the office in '88. Eventually started my own firm, myself and two lawyers I'd been practicing with. And then Murphy retired from county executive in '92. And I knew then, either come back now or you're going to be out forever, because there will be a replacement.
Did you have it in your mind while you were prosecutor that you would perhaps like to be executive someday?
The last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I knew Murphy, who was my predecessor, was going to retire at some point. Then he had a couple of strokes. I knew he was clearly going to be out of here in '92.
Yeah.
And so I went out, made a living, practicing law, biding my time in Murphy State, T. Murphy. And then I threw my hat in the ring, and I was unopposed in the Republican primary. I went on to defeat the Democrat challenger, who I do remember, was Betty Howe.
Yeah.
Who was the former labor secretary for the state of Michigan, labor director.
Right. Dan Murphy was the only executive, wasn't he?
He was
before
the first in the state.
He was the first, so you're still the second. So you guys have covered a lot of territory here, right?
Yeah, he covered, I think, around 18 years. I'm in my 19th, so I have, if it means anything, a longer serving record. I'm running next year, so.
You were known as the quintessential pro-law and order, capital punishment, no plea bargaining prosecutor. All of a sudden, you find yourself county executive. Did you inherit responsibilities and challenges in that job that came with the job itself, or did you feel something within yourself about the issues that you had to deal with as county executive that you now finally found yourself in charge of?
A prosecuting attorney is a pretty narrow field. You wear the white hat, you lock up the bad guys, and you do that year after year after year. I knew when you asked me why I ran for Senate and or for the governor, I knew I had a lot to offer beyond just being a good prosecutor. I felt I had other talents. I think I have an ample vision for where I think I can take a county or a state. And I was trying to branch out where I had more room to really strut my stuff and show people that I was creative and innovative and so forth. When this came along in '92, it released me from those years of being stuck in a pigeonhole. I think the public is satisfied that I had a lot of talent, a lot to offer, and the county, as you now know, is with the team I have in place. I don't take all the bows. It's a very well-managed county.
Do you think that the job of executive, and maybe it's a lot different now than it was when you began back in 1993, 94, 95, is a lot different than it was when Dan Murphy was head of it? Did Dan Murphy look at being executive, you think, differently than you do?
He came to the exec's office. As you pointed out, he was the first in the state. Then I think Bill Lucas came in Wayne County. He was in the board of auditors. He was basically a very honest guy, and he just made sure he was by trade a bean counter, and our books were always balanced and so forth. I don't know that he was given to start these different programs, which I think is really sort of marks my days in office, of the automation alleys, the emerging sectors, the Count Your Steps, the Brooksy Way. We can name a lot of programs that I think have added quality of life issues, arts, pizza, and eats, fire and ice. We do that because I think I've got the opportunity to expand the role of what a county exec traditionally does. And when I first got here, I was, knew that I wanted to run a tight ship and hopefully leave office at some point in time, sit with the public's respect, saying he worked hard and he was an honest guy. It wasn't right away that I found myself down in economic development. I was sort of wandering the halls, checking in on all the departments. But more and more, it was like this clarion call. I was taken back to the economic development department, because there I eventually settled in and said, this is where I can have some real value added. I can go out and market Oakland County. I can create programs that market Oakland County, whether it's arts, pizza, needs, whether we have the medical Main Street. And so that's really where my niche is. I'm a marketer. I'm an ambassador for Oakland County. The rest of the departments, I obviously spend time with the Department of Management budget. Again, we've done things there that are unique, the 3-year budget, no other county has it. But you ask me where I spend most of my time, it's probably down in the Department of Economic Development.
So you seem to really love the job.
I do.
And even though you probably still have the same feelings about you'd like to perform on a bigger stage, like statewide, nationally, or whatever, do you just have this feeling that, like, timing just wasn't right and you passed the moment when you could ever do that again? Or have you really reached the point where you've decided, this is really where I belong, this is what I've been tremendously successful at, and I'm happy?
I think I jumped in too early in my career for that race for governor. I've only been prosecutor for 10 years. If I had to do it over, I probably would have seasoned myself a little more. And I always knew that I had talent that was not being called upon. No, now I'm very satisfied where I am. I'm not unfulfilled. If I die tomorrow, I won't die longing for a wider job. I like what I do. I'm good at it. I'm one of those rare guys that looks forward to Monday morning and coming to work. Could I have performed on a larger stage? Yeah. Has that train left the station? Oh, I think so.
You were succeeded by Richard Thompson, and after him, David Gorsica. How do you look at those two men as your successors?
Yeah, Bill, that's a good question. I guess I did for them what Dan Murphy did for me. When Dan left office, he never once called and said, Brooks, this is what I would have done, or I would have done it differently. And I respected it. He let me make my own success, or let me fail on my own. In fact, he moved from Oakland County over here to the Muskegon side of the state. So when I left prosecutor, I was loath to give advice to Dick Thompson, and certainly Dave Gorsica and I were friends, but it wasn't my role to tell these guys how to run their office. So I think they developed their own, and they both have maintained the no plea bargaining policy because it was a good policy. But Dick went off on some other tangents that I'd never explored, and Dave managed his office differently than I would have. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but I had a good run.
Richard Thompson kind of got off into some social, cultural issues, didn't he?
He did. Dick was there when Kevorkian started his romp through Oakland County. I think he ultimately took the lives of 12 or 13 people before he was done. And he was taunting Dick. And unfortunately, Dick took the taunt.
Yeah.
He was running around county. If you locked me up, I dare you lock me up. Of course, the day he was arrested, hey, I want out of here. It was, and that's the only advice I ever gave Dick was, let your chief assistant handle this one. we had when I got elected back in '72, and Dick and I took a vacation and went down to, I think it was Acapulco, just to realize it was a hard race, taking on the incumbent. We sat around and reorganized the office and planned the office. And Dick, being a military guy, said, well, we should model ourselves after the military. You're the CO, so you bring the good news. I'm the XO, I'll bring the bad news. And I said, okay, so I understood what he was talking about. Well, when Dick started getting bad ink, I said, hey, you're the CO. Let the XO take this case. Well, he wouldn't listen to me.
How about Gorsica? How did he do, in your opinion?
Did fine. He had good staff, good prosecutors. He won the major cases. And he had a different theory. He had this, what I call silos. He had division for auto theft, division for child abuse, division for this. And I never liked that. I like to mix them up so the lawyers are trying all kinds of cases.